Hi everyone, welcome to Conversations with Miss T, and that is me. Today I'm having a conversation with Sifiso Dube. Sifiso is currently based in South Africa. He is an entrepreneur in the tech space. He is a business leader and the founder of the Impact organization. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in, and I hope that you enjoy this. You get a lot done in the morning, and your days feel longer.
Yeah, I'm also, I think it also depends, like, what kind of a person you are. I am a morning person. So you get some people who are like most productive and effective like in the afternoon or at night. My times of being on top of it is always the morning. So I make sure I'm up early, get a good session in, a workout session, and then I hit it.
The reason why I don't like doing work at night is because if I start doing my work, then my brain gets into this hyperactive mode, right? And I have a 9 to 5, so I need to be up at a certain time. So if I work at night, then I sleep late, and that affects my job. That becomes a cycle.
I'm with you.
But if I wake up early, then like I said, the day feels longer, and I get a lot done. Yeah. But you have your own schedule. You get to do you, however, whenever, depending on your meetings, though.
100%. I mean, I think that's it's true, right? So, as an entrepreneur, they like to say like you get to dictate or determine your own schedule. But the truth is, that schedule is also kind of dictated to you. So depending on the work that you have, what you need to get done.
Right.
And I always like to say, like, if you're gonna go out on your own, do your own thing, you're mostly gonna have to do 10 times more work than somebody who is, in a role, permanent role, whatever the case might be, because everything starts and finishes with you. So yeah, a lot of people think like it's freedom, it's cool, but it's also quite busy, and it can also be, taxing and strenuous, dependent on, where you are in your entrepreneurial journey.
And you have to be very disciplined, because if you're not, then you don't get the work done.
That's the thing. So discipline is imperative, man, Palesa. In fact, the other day I was looking at, what did it say? I was looking at, I think it was a quote or a meme on Facebook, these entrepreneurial pages. And it was talking about talent, giftedness, and discipline, perseverance. And it was basically saying, don't tell me about gifts or your talents, your giftedness, your level of, whatever. Don't tell me about that. Tell me about your ability to be disciplined, determined, and diligent. There's those examples that we always make about, someone could be a great athlete and they just have the talent. They naturally talented, right? But then you get somebody who might not have that natural talent, but they are a disciplined and focused person. So they put in the work. And I would argue that the latter, the person who is able to put in the work and is focused and is disciplined, would most probably realize more success than the person who just has a natural talent or is inherently talented. So discipline is important.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Also consistency, right? Because you have to be consistent in what you do. Have you read the book? What's it called? What's the title? Micro Habits or Atomic Habits? What's the title of that book? I'm trying to remember.
I think it's Atomic. Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
What, James Clear? I think it's James Clear.
Right.
It's actually funny that you should say that. I'm currently busy with it amongst the many books that I'm reading. So I love reading. I love books. I absolutely love it. So it's like one of my like, reading for me is like two things. It's like sort of an escape, but it can also be like therapeutic, depending on the read. But it's definitely an escape. So, and then of course, it's just essential because whenever you're reading, you're growing. So I love reading. James Clear, and the only reason I'm saying all of that is to say, I'm currently I always read like 2 to 3 books at the same time. I'm never reading like one book. So I also get very bored very quickly.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So I'm always reading like 2 to 3 books. I'm never reading one book at one go. So I'm currently reading Barack Obama's book, and it's a big, thick book. His latest book, it's called The Promised Land. Absolutely loving it.
Ooh.
I'm about halfway with that. It's a great book. And I am, a sucker for.
Oh, you just disappeared there for a little.
I'm so sorry. You know what happened?
You got a call?
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened. Don't worry.
Let me just cut it.
Oh, you can take your call and then come back to me. Don't worry.
Yeah, so I'm a sucker, Palesa, for great stories about Black people who've managed to do just incredible things. I'm a sucker for those stories, right? And so Barack Obama is obviously one of those. The first United States Black president, and he just has a really really interesting, stunning story. So I'm digging into that book. I'm about halfway through that. I'm also reading, what's the other book that I'm reading? But the third one that I'm reading is Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah.
So I'm really enjoying it, but I'm not done with it. But I think, just already off the bat, he talks about, which I think is why you brought it up. He talks about, it's the small things, it's the small habits that are most important. And if you can sort of overcome those small things, then it builds up. And it's this whole idea of it's those incremental successes that lead to the exponential growth that we all want to see. So it's a great book. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, I'm not blowing my own horn or anything, but that's basically what I've been doing over the years, just doing a little at a time to the point where I'm at right now. And when I read the book, I'm like, I've been doing that, but it was great to get somebody as successful as it is to kind of solidify that I was on the right path, because But
what's so important, Palesa, about that is because I think, and I don't want to limit it to just young people. I don't want to just say, I think a lot of times young people are millennials. I think sometimes just as people, right? We focus too much on the big wins. But we don't realize that the big wins are a culmination of small steps, the small things that we did right on a continuous basis. Those are the things that lead to the big wins. But we have this sort of obsession, especially in this social media culture, this digital age that we find ourselves with. Everybody's winning, quote unquote. Everybody's winning, everybody's posting their wins. So we have this sort of obsession with winning and these big wins, these big moments, but it's the small things that matter the most, I would argue, and it's the small things that lead to those big wins. So that is also one of the things that just in the reading of this book has been something that's really sunk for me, and I've really appreciated that.
Yeah. I also like what I've realized in my life is that, it's great to get to the finish line, but you don't spend as much time at the finish line as you do along the journey. I'm pretty sure you've done hiking, right? When you get to the summit, how long do you stay there? Like 10, 15 minutes, then that's it. But the journey takes a lot longer, So I think that it's also very important for us to realize that yes, the finish goal is important, but the journey is worth enjoying and appreciating as well. Yeah.
And I would argue, Palesa, on that the journey is more important than the finish line, right?
I wanted to say that, but I was like, maybe not. Like, I was afraid to say that.
No, and I'll tell you why, right? And let me organize my thoughts here, because this is actually exciting. So one, I would argue that the journey is more important than the finish line or the end goal, because it's in the journey where things like character are developed, patience, where we develop substance, right? There's that saying that don't be a person who has all style but no substance. And living in, again, this day and age that we find ourselves in, everybody is so focused on the appearance, right? I was just listening to a sermon now. TD Jakes, absolutely love him.
I love him. I got to see him in person, actually.
For real?
Yeah, I loved it.
Texas, aren't you, at the moment?
Yes, yeah. I'll send you photos later. I was so excited. I didn't even know who to share it with.
Like, I would go crazy. I wouldn't be able to be normal.
I was on the third row, bro. Third row seat. I loved it. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about, yeah.
How early did you arrive? Because I've heard that it gets packed there.
Well, now during COVID, not many people actually attend the service, and many people that are there are used to him. So, you can still.
They don't go crazy.
Yeah. I mean, they love him.
Wow.
It's like, it's like he's a father of the church.
Sure.
Yeah, based on how people around me were actually relating to him, they love him, and I think he loves them, and he just gives out that atmosphere that you're at home and I got you, and I love it, man. It was so exciting. And also, like being in the African American church, that too was so thrilling. I just kept doing this. I'm like, okay, sorry, you were listening to the sermon.
I can only imagine. So I was actually, funny enough, I would go crazy just like you, Palesa, if I met him. Yeah. He is one of those bishops or pastors, if you will, who has a lot of depth. So I really appreciate his message or his messages. But on what I was saying, so in this sermon called Road Rage, it's all about leadership. Mm-hmm. And he was saying that we live in a time, a day and age where everybody's focused on the image. And on the presentation, and yet you can only produce what you are. You can't produce what you are not, right? Mm-hmm. So it comes back to that idea of style versus substance. It's imperative to be people of substance. Mm-hmm. Things like personality, or style. Those things can get you in the room if you're lucky, but they're not going to sustain you. They're not going to keep you there, right? And again, I think linking to this day and age where everybody wants not only wins or is always obsessed about wins, but we're always obsessed about quick wins, right? Everybody just wants it now. Millennial age, we just want it now. We live in, mm-hmm. I mean, everything, popcorn, 30 seconds or 2 minutes, and the thing is done.
They say we're the microwave generation.
Exactly, that's exactly what I was gonna say, right? So with this microwave generation, everything is quick. I like to make this stupid example. I mean, Papa, Palesa, Pap used to take, back in the days, 40, 45 minutes, maybe to an hour, depending on who's cooking it. You really wanted to sit there, get cooked good. But today, you have instant Pap. You know what I'm saying? You put it in the pot with boiling water and it's done. And so we live in this microwave instant gratification. I want it now, this microwave generation. And the problem with that is that we then don't focus on building, from the inside out. Mm-hmm. It's always about, we flip it around, it's about the outside in. So it's always about the presentation, it's about the style, it's about how we appear, our Instagram profiles, but nobody's spending time doing the work internally. And why that's so important is because if you want to be successful over the long run, right? Not quick wins, right? You can get a quick win today and you can lose that tomorrow. But if you want to be successful over the long run, you've got to do the work of development and growth, and that's inward work. Yeah. And so just speaking to that whole idea that you were speaking about earlier.
Yeah, I love that. Let's just talk about what you do, because now, we're talking about the big stuff, the grand ideas, how to make it and everything. So here's this word that I struggle with, entrepreneur.
Sure.
Yes. When did it start? How's it going? And why did it start?
Sure. Let's start with, why did it start?
Okay. Tell me about that.
That's 3 questions. So let's start with, why did it start? Well, I've always okay, so even that, why did it start, right? I'm gonna answer that twofold, right? Okay. So on the one hand, it started because I've always been an entrepreneurial sort of, I've always had this industrialist nature. So I've always just been entrepreneurial. Right. So even if I think back to high school days, we spoke about guitar earlier on, as this grade 8 kid, when I learned guitar, and as soon as I learned guitar, I started teaching guitar and started making extra pocket money. So I've always been entrepreneurial, right? So I always knew that in one way or another in my life, I want to, be involved in the space of business or building businesses. But second to that, and this was not per se a motivation as to why it started, but this has come in, the latter years, right? Mm-hmm. When you look at where we find ourselves as a country, from an economic perspective, the jobs crisis that we have, skyrocketing unemployment, and it's even worse for youth. When you look at issues like those, I am a huge proponent and I am hugely passionate about the idea. I'm really a believer about this idea that a lot of those issues we're going to solve through small businesses, so through entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. So I think that's twofold why it started, right? How is that going? It's been a journey. It's been an absolute journey. It's been a ride. I've been involved in, everything, So one thing about entrepreneurship that I always like to say, a lot of people always want to have all the answers before they get started. And one thing about entrepreneurship is that you'll never have all the answers, but that doesn't mean you should not get started. And so, one, I guess they're just a tip for anybody. If you are an aspiring entrepreneur, aspiring business leader, just get started. Mm-hmm. You're never going to see the whole picture, but use what you have. Get started, and then you can grow from there, right? So, and I lost my trail of thought there.
It's okay. I had a question. So who was the first person you taught, who was the first person you gave guitar lessons to?
Sure, that would have been my friend. And that's actually funny because they always say, just thinking back, right? They always say, if you're, and that wasn't a startup, but they always say, if you are a startup, you're building a business, you're always going to get either your first customers or your first form of funding from friends, family, or food.
I second that. I second that. My friends, bro. Yeah.
So, it was a friend. Back then, it was a friend.
Yeah. Okay. And you see, I also lost my trail of thought. So what?
Let me pick up. I think I remember what I was saying. I think the next thing that you had asked was what. So you asked why, and then you asked how is it going, right?
Yeah.
So I was saying that
So
it's been a journey. So I've been involved in everything from the tech space to logistics to construction. Mm-hmm. Currently in construction. And a big passion of mine is tech, so looking to get back involved in the tech space. But the reason I made that example about, you'll never see the full picture, but it's just important to get started, because I was just trying to, clamp down on this idea, on this thing that a lot of entrepreneurs don't get started because they don't have all the answers, right? But I think parallel to that, what is entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship, Palesa, is that the ability to see a gap in the market, see an opportunity, and whether you know everything that needs to be known about that industry, that sector or not, mm-hmm. the ability to get involved in that space, be flexible and nimble, learn and grow, right? And exploit that opportunity. That's what entrepreneurship is. That's the only reason why I was saying you'll never have all the answers. You'll never see the whole picture.
Yeah.
But entrepreneurship is the ability to see the gaps and get in there.
Yeah.
And
imagine,
grow.
This is what I noticed when you finally get a seat at the table of entrepreneurs, you realize that not everybody has a complete full picture of what they're supposed to do. Like everybody's just sort of winging it and taking it one step at a time and just learning, along. Yeah. So I like that. Have you ever failed at anything?
All the time. And I mean, that's also another thing, right? So who is it? Was it John Maxwell? I think John Maxwell says, fail forward, right? Yeah. This whole idea. And the reason why that's so important is because I'm telling you now, Palesa, if you are an entrepreneur, if you are looking to be an entrepreneur, you're going to fail. And I'm willing to bet with anybody who argues otherwise. You're going to fail, right? And so it's so important as an entrepreneur that you understand that failure is inevitable, right? But what is more important than this idea of failing, don't be so fixated on that. Be more fixated on the lessons, learn what you need to learn, and then ensure that next time when you do it better and you don't repeat or make the same mistakes.
Yeah.
So failure, it's inevitable. It's always going to be there. Like John Maxwell says, fail forward, right? Yeah. So yes, I have it. The first venture that I got involved in, it was an online career guidance platform. We're looking to change the world with career guidance, taking it online, and we're all excited about it. And about 12 to 24 months into this thing, we started running out of capital. We just were not getting enough positive cash inflows into the business. It just wasn't working out. We found ourselves in a position after about 12, 24 months doing this thing where we just ran dry on cash and capital. And that's how that first venture failed, right?
You had to let it go? You dropped it? You walked away from it?
Yeah, I dropped it. And that's, this conversation is actually so great, because just in what you asked right now is another lesson. As an entrepreneur, you need to know when is the right time to let go. When is the right time to say, this venture is no longer working? But also on the flip side of that, you need to know when you need to continue to persevere and be persistent, right? So two sort of trails of thought there. You need to know when it's time to stop, but you also need to know that, no, this is not time to stop. This is time to keep on keeping on. So that's, just another lesson, I guess, in and of itself.
Yeah. What I like about the journey of trying to pursue or realize your goal, for me, the most exciting thing is the people that I meet along the way. That's what makes it worthwhile, And I think to myself, for example, when I went to Taiwan, and I mean, I was scared. I was traveling by myself. I usually travel by myself, and when I got there, like, I met so many people along the journey. So that is a motivation for me now to say, well, I'm really scared to do this next thing, but hey, look at what I did, and look at the people that I met, And so if I keep going, then I'm going to meet more amazing people along the way. So you find something that keeps you going and you keep going, right? And you
just on that, Palesa, if I can jump in, you're talking about, the people that you meet along the way. And I mean, this is just like business 101.
Right.
We don't give business to people who we don't like. We give business to people who we like. So interpersonal, relational skills, networking ability becomes imperative. And then you've heard the cliche or the platitude that your network is your net worth. So just on that, it's so important to know that a part of this entrepreneurial journey, spend a lot of time on developing good networks, deep networks, that if you run into, troubled times, or if you need assistance with that, there's people that you can ring up, there's people that you can call. But also it mustn't always be about you. There must be shared value. So always try to make 100%. So always try to find a way to make sure the relationship is mutually beneficial.
Yeah. And what are the ghosts that you had to face personally as you were going through this journey? What are the things that you looked at and you're like, I have to let this go. This is going to hinder me. This is going to hold me back, and stuff like that. If you don't mind sharing, by the way.
Sure. I can share one which I think a lot of, young people or millennials struggle with. And I think this is again links to, which you're going to mostly hear a lot about in our conversation, this whole idea of living in this 21st century with social media, online, etc., digital, is so definitely one of the things is just financial literacy, right? And knowing and understanding where to put your money, and where not to put your money, right? And again, back to this whole thing about, image and, a lot of people, so Sure, Palesa, my thoughts are all over the show here.
Give it to me. Let's go.
There's I was watching an interview one time, and it was for the Forbes 30 under 30 Africa list, right? And the woman, who I think she's the curator, she edits the list, or puts the list together. She was speaking on this interview, and she was saying, you'd be surprised how many applicants they get, how many applications they get. And just from the first stage of due diligence, and that first stage simply looks at whether what we see online in terms of person's presence or their brand equates or translates to the bank account, or whether the business is actually trading, whether the business is actually doing business, right? So back to that whole thing of style and substance. Is there substance to what we're seeing, right? And she said, just from that first stage of due diligence, they cut out more than 50% of the applications, more than 50% of the applicants, right? And so for me, that whole principle of knowing where to put your money, where not to put your money, I think a lot of young or millennial entrepreneurs want to always put their money, on the things that will make them look and appear good, but those are not always the things that are going to, bring rewards and fruits for your business. So knowing where to invest and knowing that, people who have money use their money to make money. So when you get money, invest that money into your business and, let that journey continue. That money should make you more money and it should bring you returns. And ultimately your focus with regards to where you invest or where you put your capital or where you put your money should be on ensuring that your business grows.
I'm gonna chip in here and say something, because I've heard people who are interested in pursuing their dreams, starting like startup companies and all of that, but they won't invest in their company. They want somebody else to invest. So before the wagon even takes off, it's like, oh, well, I'm still looking for an investor. And it's like, no, investors are going to come when you start investing in your own thing,
Yeah. But a simple question there is, how do you expect me to two things, take a bet on your idea, but more importantly, absorb the risk, right? Risk, because risk is critical when we start speaking about startups and venture capital, getting funding, etc. How do you expect me to take a bet on you and your startup if you don't even believe in your startup enough to invest in it or absorb that risk yourself?
Right.
No investor is gonna back you if you don't have your own skin in the game, right? And that's also another term when it comes to this entrepreneurial space, the business startup space. You've got to put your own skin in the game. If you're not willing to put skin in the game, nobody else is going to put their skin in the game on your behalf. It makes no sense.
Right. It doesn't, right? But people still live like that. You'd be amazed at how many people have business plans waiting for investors and they won't even invest in their own, in their own stuff. Yeah.
I would even say scrap the business plan. So one thing you're going to learn about me is I can kind of be controversial.
Don't say that. I was still learning how to draft a business plan. Don't say that.
Don't worry. Let me elaborate. I would even go so far as to say scrap the business plan, right? Get into the market and test your business or your service, whatever idea you have. Scrap the business plan. Get into the market, get paying customers, test out your business or your service in the marketplace. Test it out with real customers, get real customers, paying customers, get real feedback from those real paying customers. And then once you've gotten that going, right, then I'm telling you now, it's going to be that much more easier for you to convince somebody else from an external perspective to back you as a jockey on this horse than if all you have is a business plan, nothing tested, nothing out in the marketplace, and then you are coming to me saying you want my money. It's not gonna work.
On that note, what is the purpose of a business plan? I know what the purpose of a lesson plan in a classroom is, which I hardly ever follow. But what is the purpose of a business plan?
That is actually so funny that you said that, and I actually want to touch on that before I as a prelude before I give you the answer. Right? It's so funny that you said that. So you guys, you're teacher, you have a lesson plan,
right?
But often you don't even follow that lesson plan. Now I want to correlate the same thing because there's a lesson there, and it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. You're going to find that 80% of the time you're going to spend 2 to 4 weeks drafting this conceptual document, this comprehensive business plan. And by the third month, you won't be following it. Because by the third to 6th month, the market has changed.
Yeah.
Your competition has changed.
Yeah.
The environment has changed, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of your assumptions in the business plan are no longer going to prove true. So that's just on that. And I'm not saying don't do business plans, but
no, but
you
because
know,
also it's very essential. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep bringing it to the classroom. You take it to the business world.
sure.
It's very essential also to have a lesson plan because it helps you, channel your thoughts, and try to figure out what you're trying to achieve and how you're going to go about it. But I don't think that you could effectively teach a lesson by going, oh, okay, so 5 minutes has gone by and I need to do this. You can't, because then people
100%.
see that. It's like trying to give a speech, like, about reading. It's like, okay, it's fine to have it written, but then you have to engage, and be flexible enough to change some things if you want.
Sure.
Okay.
And I actually like what you said there, because then, and I actually like what we're doing, because this is what you'll also realize, that in life, Palesa, you don't always have to look at things in silos. There's lessons that you've learned from teaching that literally you can draw correlations to the business world, right? So just on what you just said now, what you've said is true. I would then argue that have a business plan, right? So that it's just the point of departure. It's a great point of departure. You have a skeleton. You have the basic idea of what is you're looking to achieve. But I can almost guarantee you now that, just like you said, teaching a lesson by going through it line item by line item is not going to be effective. Because, as I said earlier on, the market is going to change, etc. But yes, so what is a business plan? To answer your question quite simply, a business plan, I would say, is...
Hang on.
What is a business plan?
Wait, Sifiso, there's a bit of a delay. Hang on. Okay, so how about you leave and then you come back, okay? Because there's a bit of a delay.
Oh, okay. Let me jump off and then jump back on.
Oh yeah, try that.
Hey, Palesa, do you have me?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing that. It should be better now.
Okay, super.
Yeah.
So I was answering, what's a business plan?
Yeah. What's a business plan? Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome stuff. So what's a business plan? I mean, of course, everybody will have their definitions, and I'm sure there's a dictionary definition. My simple understanding of what a business plan is, from a practical perspective, is that it's basically a plan of how you're going to build, not only, let me not say build your product, but how you're going to get your product into the market successfully. Mm-hmm. And it just really helps you understand where the gaps are in your thinking, where the opportunities lie, and it helps you cover all the different, components in terms of the marketplace. So your competitors, it helps you look at your strategy. Your marketing. Do you have a marketing strategy? So it just helps you look at all the different components of what it's going to take to effectively, introduce a product to market and sustain it in the marketplace.
Yeah. And learn the appropriate business vocab, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Who are the people that have played a crucial role in the person that you've become right now?
Sure. So again, I'm going to answer that twofold, right? Excuse me. I'm going to give a bit of a personal one, and then I'm going to take it, out, and I'll tell you why I'll do that. So just from a personal perspective, I think, family, that's an obvious one. Mm-hmm. And I think on that, my mother's always been an industrial person, like, I said earlier in my introduction. But I've always just had this sense of being a hustler, an entrepreneur. I've always had that industrialist nature about me, that entrepreneurial edge. And my mother is very much like that. So definitely my mother, she's right up on top of that list. Mm-hmm. But, and the reason I say what I'm going to say now is because I think a lot of times, especially as a Black community, we might not have the best role models when it comes to some things that we want to do, right? And so one of the things that I love about the internet and this online economy, or this day that we live in today, is that it's made it so much easier to get access to information out there, right? Whether it's through podcasts, I mean, we're having one right now.
Right.
I love listening to podcasts, as I believe you do as well.
Right.
Reading books, right? There's YouTube where you can get access to videos of different people talking about different topics. No matter what it is that you're interested in, you can always find that information out there. So from that perspective, you know, somebody who's really influenced and impacted my life from a leadership perspective would be a bishop that I love in the States. His name is Dr. Joseph Walker.